Hello everyone. Let's discuss this question which has come in 2025 mains. So let's see the question. The question is that what are the challenges before the Indian economy when the world is moving away from free trade and multilateralism to protectionism and bilateralism. So what's happening is the world is moving away from free trade to protectionism. It's moving away from multilateralism to bilateralism. Free trade means there are very less restrictions on trade. Protectionism means countries are imposing tariffs on the imports of other countries. Multilateralism means multiple countries are trading with each other. Bilateralism means only two countries which need each other, they are trading with each other. So that's bilateralism. And second part, so we have to tell what are the challenges before Indian economy. So when the world is moving away from free trade to protectionism and from multilateralism to bilateralism, what are the challenges which India is facing? That's the first part of the question. Second part of the question is how can these challenges be met? That is, whatever challenges are coming, how can we meet these challenges? What should be India's strategy to counter those challenges? The question has come in the question has to be answered in 150 words. Let's see what the question is about. Let's see the structure, the context, then we'll move to the answer. Okay. So let's first find out the context of the question. Look, we know one thing, that the whole 2025, the day since Donald Trump has come into tenure, he has continuously imposed tariff on India, and it was in news throughout the year. So this question is contemporary in nature. US imposing tariffs on India. We need to understand one thing, that if I talk about WTO and IMF, generally questions that do not come from WTO and IMF. Static questions will hardly see from WTO and IMF. But if WTO and IMF are in news, you should surely expect a question on them in prelims as well as in mains. For example, this tariff on India, it was in news in 2025. Hence, we are seeing a question on WTO in the mains exam. Similarly, in the year of 2017 and 18, trade war was going on. US was imposing huge tariffs on China. China was countering it back. So 17-18 trade war was in news, and I'm not sure about the year 17 or 18, but 1 year 2 questions came on WTO. A single year 2 questions came on WTO. In 2016, in IMF, quota reforms and governance reforms were approved, and in 2016 itself, we got 5 questions from IMF in prelims. Single year 5 questions from IMF. Otherwise, never ever a question has come from IMF. Only in 2002, 2 questions came on IMF when the countries in the world were facing BOP crisis. Otherwise, we don't see questions from IMF or world or say WTO. So remember one thing, whenever WTO and IMF are in news, they're the most important topics. Let's move to the analysis of the question. Whether the question is difficult, moderate. This question is simple and a straightforward question because most of the time it was covered in newspaper, it was covered in monthly magazines. A simple, straightforward question. Let's now see the structure of the question. What will be the how would the answer look like? In introduction, we all know we can write a definition, we can give a data, we can give the cause of the question. In body, it's simple question, so we have to tell about the challenges, we have to tell about Indian strategies, and in way forward, we can connect the answer with Viksit Bharat. Okay, we can connect the topic with Viksit Bharat. Now let's see the exact answer. Let's see the answer. So first is about introduction. In introduction, as I told you, we can give definition. So here we can give definition of protectionism. And when countries start imposing high import duties and quotas, or countries impose tariff measures and non-tariff measures to protect their domestic economy, then it is called protectionism. We can also give a data. We can also give a data where we can write that US has imposed 50% import duties on multiple Indian goods, and it has also imposed restrictions on H-1B visas in India. Or overall H-1B visas, it has imposed restrictions on H-1B visas. We can give one more data where we can write that IMF has predicted that countries will lose 0.2 to 0.7% of GDP because of the tariffs imposed by multiple countries, especially US. We can also start the answer with a cause, where we can say that global economy, it is witnessing reversal of globalization and multilateralism, and therefore it is a challenge for Indian economy. Now, let's continue. Now let's move to the body part. So in the body, we first have to write the challenges. So what challenge we'll write first? We'll be writing that there is increased protectionism, there is a rising protectionism. And in this, we'll have to substantiate it with data. So we'll say that US imposing 50% import duty will impact 67% of export to US. And how is protectionism increasing further? First is US imposing import duties. Second is European Union. It has brought actually two acts. First is cross-border adjustment mechanism, and second is European Union deforestation regulation. Both these acts, cross-border adjustment mechanism and European Union deforestation regulation, they are basically to protect the environment, right? So this cross-border adjustment mechanism, it is actually a sort of a carbon tariff which is being imposed on carbon-intensive products. So if European Union is importing steel, it's importing cement, basically carbon-intensive products, then there will be high tariff on them. European Union deforestation regulation, it is trying to reduce deforestation in the world. So yes, India's products are carbon intensive. In India's case, deforestation happens. So therefore, both these cross-border adjustment mechanism and European Union deforestation regulation, they can reduce India's export competitiveness. Then China has imposed a ban on rare earth magnets. It's not an outright ban. There are some restrictions on the export of rare earth magnets, but that will surely have an impact on high-end technology manufacturing in India. Then let's move to the next part, which is what is another challenge? Another challenge is regarding cross-border labor flow restrictions. So first one was protectionism through import duties. Second is restriction on labor flow. How there has been a restriction on labor flow? The H1B visa fees, it has been increased. And the 70% of beneficiary of H1B visa are Indians. So if the H1B visa fees is increasing, it's surely going to impact Indians. And if the visa fees is increased, if Indians are not able to go to US, then it means there is reduced opportunity for IT people. And if there is reduced opportunity for IT people in US, it means reduction in remittances. Reduction in remittances means there will be a decrease in domestic consumption in India. And there would also be a reduction in forex inflow in India. So that's another challenge. Another challenge because of cross-border flow restrictions, labor flow restrictions, cross-border labor flow restrictions. Then there has been also a restriction on capital flow. There has been a challenge, not a direct challenge, but I would say they're not doing it directly, but indirectly there is a challenge in case of cross-border capital flow also. For example, US has brought act called US Inflation Reduction Act and European Chips Act. So yes, US Inflation Reduction Act, it's trying to encourage domestic manufacturing in US by focusing on local energy. We focus on local manufacturing system. European Union Chips Act is trying to encourage the manufacturing of semiconductors in US. So this is about semiconductor. This is about energy and manufacturing. Hold on, please. No. So these two acts, your US Inflation Reduction Act and European Union Chips Act, they actually encourage onshoring, means focus on manufacturing in US and European Union. this will lead to reduction in FDI inflow in India. Rather, if we go by data, then FDI has reduced by 96% in 24-25 due to outflow of FDI from India. So this was regarding about FDI. If we talk about FPI, then this global uncertainty will also lead to a reduction in FPI also, because no one would like to invest, no one would like to take a risk when there is uncertainty. This global uncertainty is also causing a reduction in foreign portfolio investment. This international payment system fragmentation. This international payment system fragmentation, it's not exactly related to protectionism, but after Russia-Ukraine war, there has been ban on Russia. It cannot use SWIFT. So this exclusion of Russian banks for SWIFT, it is creating a problem for Indians to make payment to Russian oil companies. As Russian banks are not part of SWIFT now, there is a ban on them. Therefore, Russian oil companies, payment of Russian oil companies are stuck in accounts of India, stuck in accounts in Indian banks. The payment is delayed. That's again causing a further problem for India in terms of import of certain things. Similarly, China's CIPS. CIPS is cross-border interbank payment system. CIPS is cross-border interbank payment system. This is CIPS. It actually provides a clearing. It is actually a clearing and settlement system for international payments. So China has brought CIPS, so it is going to encourage transactions in renminbi. So it can further create a problem for India. It can further marginalize India. Then there is another challenge of currency and forex challenge. What is currency and forex challenge? Look, as India is dependent on dollar-based trade, therefore it is vulnerable to exchange rate shock. How exchange rate shock? It's vulnerable if rupee depreciates. Then it's going to increase crude oil price in terms of rupee terms. It's going to reduce our trade balance, because if rupee depreciates, crude oil price would increase. If rupee depreciates, then crude oil price, it increases in rupee terms. Crude oil price increases in rupee terms, it means diesel price would go up. It means cost of production and cost of transportation will increase for the companies. Therefore, their selling price will also increase and their exports may not remain competitive. Hence, it may reduce our trade balance. It may be having a negative impact on India's trade balance. Moreover, rupee depreciation, as I told you over here, it's going to increase crude oil price in rupee terms. It's also going to increase edible oil price in rupee terms. And these are two India's largest imports, crude oil and edible oil. So this rupee depreciation may also lead to imported inflation. Then another challenge. Another challenge is that it's also leading to a decline in global public goods and multilateral cooperation. US imposing a tariff on India, it is actually weakening the WTO. And at the same time, US has also pulled out of Paris Agreement, due to which this climate change financing in India can be a problem. So India faces multiple challenges because of this protectionism. We have discussed all those challenges. Now let's move to what may be Indian strategies on countering these protectionist measures. Now, how can we address protectionism? First, majority of import duties on India has been imposed by US. So what we can do is we can diversify our export destinations. Instead of exporting to US, we can focus on exporting to South America. We can focus on exporting to ASEAN. We can even diversify our product portfolios. Why to keep on exporting the same products again and again? Why to keep on exporting textile, leather, pharmaceuticals? We can start making new products and diversify our product portfolios. Okay, so that we can create a market for our goods. Then we can also leverage India's FTAs, free trade agreements. Currently, negotiations are going between India and UK and India and European Union regarding free trade agreements. So India should try to leverage them to increase its exports. Similarly, India should try to secure strategic resources through bilateral agreements. India has already done bilateral agreement with Ghana, with Chile, with Argentina for importing lithium. Another challenge was cross-border labor flow constraints, right? So if US is creating a problem, why not to explore alternate markets? Why can't Indians focus on going to Australia, going to Europe? And if Indians, they focus on high value services, that is, they get mastery in AI, in Internet of Things, then US would call them. US would reduce H1B visa because US would be requiring them. Then other strategy which we can do is we should also we should bring domestic reforms. Domestic reforms means we should amend our bilateral investment treaty. So in this budget of 2025, we had even proposed to amend our bilateral investment treaty so that it becomes more protectionist, it provides more protection to foreign investors. So we should amend it as soon as possible. At the same time, we should try to position ourselves as China plus one alternative. Then, I told you earlier that because of dominance of dollars in India's external trade, there is a risk of exchange rate. We can say there is a currency risk or there is exchange rate risk. How to counter that exchange rate risk? We can focus on internationalization of rupee. What more we can do is we can do more internationalization of UPI. Many countries are adopting India's UPI, so India should try to promote it more. And India should also promote its domestic messaging payment system like SFMS, which is Structured Financial Messaging System. What is SFMS? It is Structured Financial Messaging System. It is basically a interbank communication for secure messaging. All right. It is basically a interbank financial communication method. So India should promote SFMS also. Then India should try to engage the public goods, the global public goods. India should try to get more engagement in G20, in BRICS, in WTO on how to counter those tariffs. And at the same time, India should also use its soft power. It should promote Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam for inclusive global solutions. So these are the strategies. If I talk about way forward, what can we write in the end? So we can write that if India has to achieve the goal of Viksit Bharat by 2047, then we'll have to balance integration with the world along with self-reliance. This short way forward will be good enough. I've given a lot of points. 5 points in the challenges, 6 points in the strategies how to counter it. You write few points of it, you will be able to score good marks in this if you write this content. I'll come up with more questions like this. Stay tuned. Thanks.